Good evening, everyone. I'm Abby Campbell, and I am part of Ohio Farm Bureau's Young Agricultural Professionals State Committee. And this evening, we're excited to provide an overview of the multiple competitions that are part of the Young Ag Professionals group. And hopefully out of this call, we will encourage some more members to apply, to get involved, and to have a more successful experience through the competition process. So tonight's agenda, we're going to go through an overview of each of the contests. We're going to hear from a past winner from each competition. So they'll have the opportunity to provide tips, tricks, advice, and also to answer your questions. And then at the end, we'll have some more resources available for you and talk about some next steps that you feel most prepared to hopefully put in your application for one of these 3 contests this fall. So the first contest that we're going to talk about this evening is the Outstanding Young Farmer Competition. And one of the most important pieces to help distinguish between this award and the Excellence in Agriculture Award is that the Outstanding Young Farmer is designed for those who a majority of your income is from farming. So you have a career in production agriculture. And so this award is designed to help young farmers strengthen their business skills, develop marketing opportunities, and receive recognition for their accomplishments. And so really contestants are being judged on the growth of their farm businesses, their involvement in Farm Bureau, and their committees. So in their communities. So an individual or a couple can apply for this award. As I mentioned before, it must be actively engaged in farming with the majority of their gross income coming from production agriculture. So this can be in the form of you being paid via a W-2 or a Schedule F. We've had some misconceptions about that in the past. And so applicants must have at least 3 years of financial records showing that the majority of that income did come from production agriculture. And so the application piece is due December 1st for this award. After the applications are reviewed, the top 3 finalists will be notified and they will have an in-person interview at the Winter Leadership Experience. And the interview itself is only based on what was submitted in the application. And so that December 1st deadline is just the application component has to be prepared at that time. All of our contests have similar eligibility. So for the Outstanding Young Farmer and the Excellence in Ag, you can either be individual or married couple. You must be involved in Farm Bureau, a voting or an active member of your county Farm Bureau, and you must be between those ages of 18 and 35. And so we'll specifically have those dates for you on what that eligibility end date is here later this evening. Of course, previous state winners cannot apply. Our state committee members cannot apply until they retire. And so we also don't want any past or present members of the American Farm Bureau Young Farmers and Ranchers Committee. So those are some of the specific eligibility requirements. The next award that our YAP members can apply is the Excellence in Ag Award. And so this is a focus within leadership, Farm Bureau involvement in the agricultural industry. And so this is more so telling a story of your journey in agriculture. And so applicants do not have to have or should not have a majority of your net income from production agriculture enterprise. So more so, how are you involved in Farm Bureau? How are you involved in agriculture? What have you contributed to the industry within your career? And being able to highlight that journey of growth and development within agriculture. So similar to Outstanding Young Farmer, this is an application that is due, a written application that is due on December 1st. And those that are selected as finalists will prepare a presentation. And that presentation will have to be submitted in advance of the Winter Leadership Experience, and then you will deliver that presentation at that conference. So that is the distinguisher between Excellence in Ag and the Outstanding Young Farmer Award. The next competition that our members have the opportunity to apply for is the discussion meet. And so This contest focuses on current issues in agriculture, public speaking, and problem solving skills. And it is very competitive in nature. You are simulating a committee meeting, you're building those discussion skills, and you are discussing key, important, hot topics in agriculture. And you're working as a consensus to really simulate what it would be like to work in a committee to come up with a problem and some active solutions that you can work towards. So this one has an earlier deadline. And it's not so much an application as it's more of a registration. So you have to register by October 1st. Everyone that is registered for the discussion meet will receive a link to a training call that we'll be hosting on October 22nd at 8 p.m. In this training call, we will specifically break down the topics that you will have at the competition. So we will talk about some of the different ways that you could answer the question and maybe some of the places that you could pull resources from so that you are most prepared for the contest itself. And those topics are available on the Farm Bureau website. And so you can read what those would be for the semifinal round that would be held in December. So now that we have gone through the three main competitions for our young ag professionals, we're going to have the opportunity to hear from a past winner of each of those. And so we're going to start with John Hummel, a past winner of the Outstanding Young Farmer Award. And if you want to start out, John, by introducing yourself and your best piece of advice for the competition.
Yes, John Hummel here, current chair of the YAP committee right now, and past winner of the Outstanding Young Farmer Award, like Abby had mentioned. This award is pretty unique because of its tie to finance over basically over the whole scope of the rest of your operation. There's your financial success is almost a fourth or actually it's over a fourth of what the rubric is graded on. So it's pretty gets down in the nitty gritty of your basically your operation. And my advice would be basically I would play out all scenarios of how you're financially tied to your operation. I maybe didn't do that as much as I should have. And then the other things I'd say is don't be afraid to put anything on the application when it comes to Farm Bureau experience. I had a friend tell me who also won that if you served fried chicken at a Farm Bureau dinner, you should put that on your application. So anything on there that's going to help that, any of your growth, anything, any part of your business that's different, that sets you out from anybody else's application, any side business that you do or anything like that, I think would help your application.
John, what helped you prepare most for the contest or for the application? Any part, what are some things that you did to prepare and what helped you the most in that process?
Really leaned back on the High Farm Bureau staff. Leaned hard on it would be Mary's position, which was Kelsey at the time, but also some of my local board members who had some experience in this area, and just any past award winner that you can get a hold of for any of these awards. I think would be willing to help and kind of explain how they went about it and give you feedback on how you're filling out the application.
What did you personally gain from this contest moving forward now that it's over? You reflect back, how did this help you? What did you gain from this experience?
Yeah, so I've said all along the relationships we've built in Farm Bureau has been probably the greatest thing that aside from trying to better our agricultural communities, but the relationships we've built, it has driven my wife and I to be on this committee and meet lots of new great people. and it has been a really, really fun time in our life. So I would say probably the best thing that came about for me was pushing me to get more involved in the Young Ag Professionals group.
And then last question, John. What would you say to someone that was on the fence on whether or not they should apply for this award?
Well, just because you apply and don't win doesn't mean, as long as you're of age, doesn't mean you can't apply again. So it's also a really great way as a farmer to look back on yourself, which we never do, and say, we started out here, because you go all the way back to the start, and then you go the last 3 years of financial history, and it kind of makes you look at the whole picture of where you started and where you are now, and it can be pretty rewarding to see that. So anybody that can put a little bit of time into the application should they should really try to do it, because it's rewarding to see everything that you have done from where you started to where you are now.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing, John. Our next special guest this evening is Sarah Talmadge, and she is a previous winner of the Excellence in Ag competition. And so, similar to with John, Sarah, if you want to start out by introducing yourself, and what advice would you give to someone who would like to apply for this award?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you everyone for joining. It's really awesome that you're all here. And thank you, Abby, for putting this together. So my name's Sarah Talmadge. As Abby has mentioned, I am, let's see, a previous Excellence in Ag contest winner for 2024, I think is the year. The years go by a little fast now, but currently, I work for The Ohio State University in the Wexner Medical Center system. I am a clinical research coordinator, and I work with a variety of populations in the behavioral health and mental health fields. But I originally came from the other side of research, animal side of research, and I worked with livestock in the public health sector. And let's see, Abby, what was the first question that you had for me?
Yes. What advice would you give to someone who wants to apply for this award?
A lot of my advice is very similar to what John had shared, but for Excellence in Ag, my number one advice would be to just get involved in everything. I think we all have heard that many times before in a lot of areas, but really, if you want to be involved, you want to compete in Excellence in Ag, just get out there, get involved on your local level, state level, and if you have the opportunity to, also on the national level. And just like John had also said, if you're going to be doing if you're going to be doing the Excellence in Ag application, you really do need to put down everything, because there's so many different things that we all have been involved in that really look good for us. Some things that have really stood out for me have been some of the smallest things that I've been involved in on the local level. And like coming up here, we have our Ashland County Fair. We started last year, we started a welcome lunch for our 4-H members and advisors and parents. Like, that's a small thing in a way, but that's something that I would put on an application. So that's just an example of that. So just get involved in everything.
What were some key parts of you telling your story of your journey in Farm Bureau, your journey in agriculture, that you included in your application? I think it's important to show people who are interested in applying, what were some of those key parts of your journey that you mentioned some already that were important, but what were some other ones that you included in your application?
Yeah, really in my application, it started out with my personal story. And that started out with my family, because when it comes to agriculture, for pretty much all of us, if we come from more of that traditional agricultural background, I talked about my family farm. I also talked about the fact that my dad was in the military, retired from the Marine Corps. So I did talk about that. So I did have that traditional and non-traditional start in agriculture. So I had, I dipped my feet in both of those. So I told that part of my story, started out with that, and then went into the issues that are important to me in agriculture, things like rural healthcare access, ag literacy, some of the ways that I've made impacts in agriculture in those areas, and then also just like leadership, and again just listing everything that I've been involved in, and really talking about those things that were really important to me.
What would you do differently if you competed in this contest again?
What would I do differently if I competed in this contest again? I was pretty proud of myself. I think being involved in a contest, and really any of these contests, but especially Excellence in Ag, I mean, you're really telling your story, but you you really have to make sure you're talking about the appropriate things. And I guess I don't know if there's really anything that I would change. I'm just really happy that I was able to get out there. I've really faced my fears, and being able to get out and tell my story in front of others, and share a bit more about myself and my family's story and the things that were important to me. Um, I guess if there was something that I would change, just maybe talking to some of the past national award winners and see what really worked out for them. And one of the things that really helped develop my presentation the way that it came out to be was because when Stacey Anderson won in 2023 on the national level, I was able to watch her presentation when we were in Puerto Rico for the national convention, and that really helped me. That gave me an idea of where to start and how I wanted to put together my presentation, and also kind of helps with my application process as well. And I really wanted to focus on my family story starting out, and so yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sarah. We are going to turn it over now to our last previous award winner. The discussion meet is very unique compared to our Excellence in Ag and our Outstanding Young Farmers. So we have Mike Hannawald joining us this evening. Mike, if you want to introduce yourself and start out with your best piece of advice.
All right. Well, thanks, Abby. So as Abby said, my name is Mike Hannawald. I'm from Lucas County, which is up in Northwest Ohio. Grew up on a farm there and still actively am engaged in the farm. Dad and I grow corn, soybeans, and wheat, working together. And then off the farm, I work as a agronomist for Beck's Hybrids, covering Northern Ohio and Northeast Indiana. So that's a little bit about me, I guess. And so, yeah, I competed in the contest. So I did the Ohio contest in January of 2022, and then went on to compete in the AFBF contest in January of 2023. And so I guess my best piece of advice is, if you're thinking about doing it, just do it. It's a really neat contest, very unique from the others. So the others are very much application based and based on your resume and career accomplishments, and all those are very important things, obviously. And with the discussion meet, the more life experience that you have definitely helps. But the discussion meet, you're judged on what happens the day of the contest. And it's an excellent opportunity to push yourself out of your comfort zone, learn about ag topics that are unique, that maybe you wouldn't normally be exposed to, and then get to have really high level, impactful conversations with other people that care just as much about the conversation as what you do. That's what makes the contest so unique, is that everyone is prepared and everyone's ready to talk about it, and everyone kind of comes in from an equal perspective. So my advice would be to just take the chance, go for it, and because worst thing that'll happen is you'll learn a lot about different parts of ag, and then come out meeting new people and having had impactful conversations. So.
Thanks, Mike. What is some of the best ways that you prepared for this contest, and any tips and tricks that you might have to feel more confident when it comes to that first round?
Yeah, so I guess first thing is spend some time thinking about the topics. For me, topics came out right before harvest season, and so I saved them on my phone. And while have those long hours in the combine, I could pull them up and just kind of think about them, think through how would I approach these, what pieces of information do I know, what do I need to learn, and just kind of give the topic some deep thought. And then once harvest wrapped up, I really dove in and did a lot of research and talking about like pushing out of your comfort zone. So for the state contest, the topic I was given after I had applied to compete, I found out the topic was dealt with meat processing, and I'm an agronomist and a grain farmer, so way out of my wheelhouse. But I had a ton to learn, but it was very interesting going through that process. And so just compiling all the information. One of the really neat things that I didn't think a whole lot about until I did the contest was that after I won the state level, I suddenly had all the resources of Ohio Farm Bureau at my disposal. So had the opportunity to spend a day in Columbus meeting with all of Ohio Farm Bureau's policy experts and talking through the topics and sharing my talking points I'd accumulated, getting their advice and tips. And it's really neat to gives you an inside look at how Farm Bureau works. But yeah, my approach was I wanted to learn as much about the topics as what I could, so that I was prepared to talk about it regardless of what direction the conversation went. Because that's something that makes the contest really unique is you are competing with the other people involved in the contest, but you have to work together. And so I had my 3 or 4 points that I would bring to the conversation and be prepared to talk about and really knew a lot of detail. But I tried to just learn as many of the other aspects of the issue so that no matter what the competitors brought up, I had something that I could add to the conversation. And so spending the time researching, learning, talking with others is really important there. So
Thinking about the structure of the contest, I know also from personal experience, my first round, I was very taken aback at the structure and what exactly my role was. So I was hoping that you could talk a little bit about, okay, what is the role of all these competitors and how do we keep this conversation going? And, what is the environment that we want this collaborative discussion to be like?
right. So as Abby said in the very beginning, it kind of takes the role of a committee meeting. So you want this to be a productive conversation. And there's kind of three main parts to it. So the first part, you have to really pick apart the problem. What all does this involve? Who all is affected by this issue? What are all the things that we don't think about that could be unintended consequences or unintended effects with this issue? And then once you pick that out, then you start proposing solutions and coming up with ideas of how do we improve this? Or maybe the answer is not to make changes. That's a valid approach also. And then after you're done, then tying it all together, wrapping it up, and coming up with an action plan going forward. Those are kind of the three main components of the discussion. Now, the challenge is you've got three other people who want to take the discussion their own ways. And so being able to navigate that, give everyone the chance to share, pull from pieces that they share and tie it together and try and guide the discussion towards a productive conclusion that has some concrete recommendations for course of action going forward, whether it's just us as individuals or whether it's policy changes in Farm Bureau or whether it's actions that we want to institute, to go forward as an organization, whatever that might be. That's kind of the goal in the process there.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. And then one last question. What have you gained from this contest and how do you still see the benefit of that? What did you get out of this experience as a whole?
Yeah, so I'd say the kind of like John and Sarah mentioned, the people you meet in the process were really unique, and giving me some exposure to see what the YAP committee does behind the scenes, and made kind of inspired me to go pursue joining the committee. But I guess different people you met along the way, the amount that I learned along the way, and just building some confidence in being able to be the leader of a discussion, whether it's a county board meeting or whether it's a meeting we have at work. Being someone who can kind of listen to what other people are saying, add my own input, but then sum it up and kind of help guide that discussion into a direction. Like I say, whether it's a county board meeting discussing what policy we're going to bring up at the annual meeting, or whether it's at a meeting at work when we're discussing how to approach agronomy training for the coming season. being I can see some of those traits I learned through discussion meet coming out in summing up what other people are saying and coming up with an action plan that kind of takes everyone's point of view into consideration. So it's neat to see that. So.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Mike, and thank you to the rest of our special guests for joining us. At this point, we are going to have the opportunity for questions. So if there's anybody who is on the call that would like to unmute themselves and ask a question to our special guests or to myself, you're more than welcome to do that. If you'd like to put a question into the Q&A box as well, that's also an option. We're happy to answer any questions or provide any additional information that is requested. Okay, so feel free to add any questions or to reach out as we start to wrap up our call this evening. We did want to make sure that we highlighted the age eligibility. This can be confusing sometimes. So of course, our applicants must be at least 18 years old at the time they submit their state application, and you cannot reach your 36th birthday by completion of the national contest if you were to advance. So this means for the 2026 contest year, which are the applications that are being submitted this fall, you must be born on or after January 12th, 1991. So we try to make that as clear as possible for anyone who's interested in applying. As a reminder, our Outstanding Young Farmer and our Excellence in Ag applications, which is the first part of the process for those competitions, are due December 1st. And the discussion meet registration, the registration is not so much an application, but the registration is due on October 1st. And once again, all of those who register for the discussion meet will receive a link to join a specific discussion meet training call that we'll be hosting on October 22nd, where we will further break down and go into more depth on the topics that you'll have those first couple of rounds. As a reminder, for all of the contests that we provide through YAP, you need to make sure that your Farm Bureau dues are paid. So you can do that online or call your county office just to make sure that they're up to date. And we also have a web page that has all of this information. It has flyers with more details about all three of these competitions. It also has the prizes that are available to you if you choose to compete and are successful. If you have more questions about these contests, you can send them to that email that is below. And we will be happy to encourage and to help you get those questions answered and hopefully increase the number of YAP members that we have apply and compete in these contests this year. Last but not least, we do have another opportunity, another call that will be coming up here on Wednesday, September 3rd. And this call is for anybody who's interested in learning more about ways to grow your local Young Ag Professionals group within Farm Bureau, whether that's getting it started or expanding it or making it have more of an impact. And so you can register for that using that link below. We hope to see many of you on that call as well. Thank you so much for joining us this evening, and we hope that many of you will apply for these competitions and that we will get to see you at our Winter Leadership Experience and several other Farm Bureau events throughout the year. Thank you so much.
Hey, Abby, we actually had a question come in the Q&A section. So for the discussion meet contest, how did you go about informing your opening statement? Might you or Mike be willing to address that?
Yeah, absolutely. Mike, do you want to go first?
Sure, I can, I guess. So for me, most of kind of back to what I said earlier, most of the opening statement ideas came from riding the combine. I do my best thinking in a tractor or a combine cab. That's going to be different for everyone. But I guess just thinking about what the topic meant to me, and what I felt was most important to bring out. I usually try to bring at least one point of discussion into that. One thing I'll say: the opening statements are only 30 seconds. You've got to have it memorized, stone cold, because all of mine timed out at about like 27. So that's not a lot of time to put that in. For me, closing statements, those I wrote based on how the discussion went. I took notes throughout the actual discussion, and then during that 1 minute of quiet time, just kind of circled and starred points in my notes that I wanted to make sure to include. And I had my last sentence, however I ended my closing statement, I had that memorized ahead of time, so that basically the bulk of my closing statement summarized and was adapted to the discussion that was just had. But I would always have that last sentence memorized to be able to finish on a strong note. So that's how I went about it. So Abby, I'm curious what you have to share too.
Yes, Mike really hit the key points. I think it's really important. Your opening statement should be memorized. You should be confident in your opening statement. I remember timing myself multiple times to make sure that even when I was nervous, or even if I got tripped up, I would still be done before that 30 seconds was up. And to me, I just thought of it like the start of any great essay or a great story. It needs to be memorable. It's your first opportunity to make an impression. Your opening and closing statements are delivered to the audience. And so you're really delivering it to the judges. And so how can you be memorable? How can you make an impact? How can you show that you know your stuff? How can you showcase your personality? Because that's your opportunity to really get the conversation started. And then similar, closing statements, I think the most important part is that you don't memorize your whole closing statement, because that shows that you didn't listen to anything that happened in that conversation that you just had. So I think a tip and trick that helped me was to not memorize my closing statement, but to memorize the flow of my closing statement. So I knew that I was always going to start by acknowledging my other competitors. I was going to bring up some of the great ideas they had. I was going to summarize our conversation. I was going to throw in maybe that great idea that I had in the conversation and what our next steps were moving forward. And then I was going to have that really good closing line, like Mike mentioned, that's really going to help solidify your role in the conversation and hopefully make you memorable as you wrap up your contest. Well, thanks, Mary, for throwing us that question. If there are no other questions, thank you again for everybody else that joined us this evening.
I saw a hand raised. Sarah, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, I mean, I'll see if I can get this turned on too. If anyone is interested in competing at any point in time in Excellence in Ag, the one big piece of advice that I have for all of you, since the application it focuses a lot on your leadership and the involvement that you've done on the local, state, and national level. My recommendation outside of just getting involved is to keep a running list, whether it's on a Microsoft Word document, in an Excel sheet, or even just in a journal somewhere, of all of the involvement in the events that you've been a part of or you've attended ever since you were 18 up until current time, and also the years that you've been involved in those things. I think that's also a really great resource to have, say if you're in the job market as well, and utilizing that. But keeping that running list over the years is going to make your application process a lot easier for you. I know it was a lot easier for me. I was also very fortunate to already have a running document from my application to the state YAP committee, so I was able to feed that into my application. So even if you're not going to be, or you're not looking at competing in Excellence in Ag or either of the other contests, I can't speak to what those applications look like. Just keep a running list, because that could be a resource that you can use for other things as well. And let's see, I feel like there was one other thing, but it totally slipped my mind there. But yeah, just keep that running list, and if you're not interested in doing in applying for this coming year or the coming years, you think that maybe it's not quite the time for me, go ahead. If you want to see how you do, go ahead and just try it out. There's a lot of really awesome things that people are doing, and I think that you should be able to showcase and highlight everything that you've been doing in your communities, whether that's Farm Bureau or just your general rural community. I think this is a really great opportunity to reflect on what you've done and what you've been a part of and the people that you've been able to work with. Yeah, that's what I wanted to add.
Thank you, Sarah, for adding that. That's really helpful advice for all of our future competitors. Okay, I see no more raised hands. Mary will let us know if you have any more questions, but please utilize that YAP email and reach out. And thank you once again for joining us this evening.